My parents called at 2 a.m. screaming, "Caitlin, your brother is in the hospital right now. He's in Aspen. Send $25,000 immediately or he'll be in agony all night." I said calmly, "No." Then I hung up, turned off my phone and went back to sleep. For the first time in 32 years, the only voice in my head was my own. There was no echo of my mother's disappointment, no ghost of my father's silent judgment. For as long as I can remember, my family has treated me like their personal ATM. I'm Caitlin Fletcher, a geotechnical engineer living in Denver, and I was raised to believe my only purpose was to be a safety net for my younger siblings. My brother, Christopher, the 25-year-old golden child who could do no wrong. And my sister, Madison, the 22-year-old influencer princess who believed the world owed her a picturesque life. My dad, Michael, a retired fire captain, was the silent enabler. My mom, Jennifer, was the master manipulator, a woman who could weaponize guilt with a single sigh. "You're the oldest, Caitlin. It's your job to take care of them." That was the mantra of my childhood. And I believed it. I paid for Christopher's first car. I funded Madison's first trip to Europe for content creation. I cleared their credit card debt more times than I can count. I always caved because that's what a good big sister does, right? But that night, listening to their manufactured panic over the phone, something in me didn't just snap, it turned to steel. My refusal wasn't loud or angry. It was quiet. It was final. And what happened next didn't just destroy my family. It revealed they were never a family to begin with. They were a syndicate and I was their sole investor. That 2 a.m. phone call wasn't a request for help. It was the detonation of a carefully constructed lie that had been my entire life. As I lay in the dark, the silence of my apartment felt louder than their screams. The ghost in the machine, that little voice of conditioned guilt that had whispered in my ear for 3 decades, was finally gone. It used to tell me I was selfish for wanting to save for my own home. It shamed me for taking a vacation while Madison needed a new camera lens. It called me a bad daughter for questioning why Christopher couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months. But tonight that ghost was silent. All I felt was a profound, chilling calm. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm has passed, leaving behind a clean, empty sky. I knew the morning would bring chaos. I knew there would be retaliation. But for the first time I wasn't afraid of the fallout. I was ready for it. Because when you've already lost everything that matters, the only thing you have left to gain is yourself. And that night, I decided I was worth fighting for. I started keeping a spreadsheet about 5 years ago. Not for my own budget but to track the money flowing out of my account and into theirs. The number was staggering. $250,000. $250,000 gone. College tuitions for degrees that were never finished. Down payments for cars that were eventually repossessed. Bailouts for failed business ventures Christopher called startups. Funding for Madison's influencer trips that yielded nothing but sponsored posts and credit card debt. That spreadsheet was the first time I truly understood the trap I was in. It wasn't just love or family duty. It was a psychological prison my mentor, Jessica, called the FOG. Fear, obligation, and guilt. The fear was of being cast out, of being labeled the selfish sister, the ungrateful daughter. The obligation was the story they had drilled into me since birth. That my success wasn't mine, it was a family resource. The guilt was the weapon they used every time I hesitated. My mother could make me feel like a monster for buying a new couch instead of paying for Christopher's $5,000 gaming setup. It was a perfect system of control. Jessica, a senior partner at my firm, saw it from a mile away. We were having lunch one day when my phone buzzed with a Venmo request from Madison for $900, labeled emergency skincare. I started to type in my PIN and Jessica put her hand over my phone. "Caitlin," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "they're not asking anymore. They're just taking. You've taught them that your well is bottomless." He was right. The requests had become demands and my compliance was expected. The final catalyst started 2 weeks before the 2 a.m. phone call. Christopher announced in the family group chat that he and his wealthy friend, Ryan, were going to Aspen for a mental health weekend. He needed to reset. Before I could even react, Madison chimed in that she was going too for the networking opportunities. My mom immediately texted me privately. "Your brother and sister deserve this, honey. They've had such a hard year." Translation: get your wallet ready. I ignored the text. A few days later, a photo appeared in the chat. The 3 of them, Christopher, Madison, and Ryan, posing in front of a private jet. Madison's caption read, "Aspen bound. So grateful for family who makes dreams come true." A cold dread washed over me. I knew my parents' finances. They didn't have private jet money, which meant someone was running up a tab they couldn't pay. And I knew exactly who they expected to settle the bill. From the moment they landed, Madison's social media became a performance of obscene wealth. It wasn't a vacation. It was a fantasy reel broadcast to her 2 million followers. They checked into a 3-bedroom suite at the Little Nell, and she posted a 30-second video panning across the marble bathrooms, the roaring fireplace, and the balcony overlooking the snow-covered mountains. She tagged the hotel and added the caption, "Home for the next few days." That night, they were at a private table at a nightclub, surrounded by sparkler-topped bottles of $1,000 champagne. Christopher posted a blurry video of himself throwing stacks of $100 bills into the air while Ryan laughed beside him. I watched it all from my couch in Denver, eating leftover chili and reviewing structural integrity reports for a bridge project. The contrast was so sharp it felt like a physical blow. The next day was even worse. They rented matching white Range Rovers. Madison did an entire photo shoot in a Fendi ski suit that cost more than my mortgage payment. They posted videos from the top of Aspen Mountain, laughing and clinking glasses, completely detached from reality. I was in a 2-hour meeting about soil mechanics when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a screenshot from Madison's Instagram story, sent by a friend from college. Madison was posing in a boutique, holding up a diamond tennis bracelet. The caption was a poll, "Should I?" My friend's text underneath was simple. "Isn't that the bracelet you wanted for your 30th birthday?" I had sent my mom a picture of that exact bracelet a year ago. He told me it was too extravagant. But here was Madison about to buy it on a whim. The breaking point came that night. Madison posted a perfectly curated photo of her and Christopher at dinner. They were beaming, holding up glasses of red wine. In the comments, one of her followers wrote, "Wow, your family must be so proud and supportive. Big sis must be loaded." The comment got thousands of likes. It went viral within her community. Big sis must be loaded. The words burned on my screen. People saw this fantasy and thought I was funding it. They saw their reckless spending and credited it to my hard work, my 60-hour weeks, my sacrifices. They weren't just spending my money, they were spending my reputation. They were cosplaying as wealthy heirs on my dime, and I was being painted as the benefactor of their ridiculous lifestyle. I stared at that comment for 10 minutes. The anger in my chest growing colder and harder until it settled into a quiet, unshakable resolve. They had no idea what was coming. They thought the bank was still open. They were about to find out it was closed. Forever. I woke up the morning after the 2 a.m. call to a digital firestorm. The peace I had felt was the calm eye of the hurricane, and now I was in the swirling debris. Madison had gone nuclear. She posted a 60-second, tear-streaked video from what looked like a hospital waiting room. Her face was puffy, her voice shaking with practiced outrage. "My brother Christopher is lying in a hospital bed in agony," she sobbed into the camera. "And my own sister, Caitlin Fletcher, refused to send the money for his treatment. She's a successful engineer in Denver, she makes 6 figures, and she is letting him suffer over $25,000. She wasn't done. She tagged my full name. She tagged the name of my company. She put my professional email address in the caption, encouraging her followers to let my heartless sister and her bosses know what you think of her." The video hit 1 million views before I had even finished my first cup of coffee. Then came the messages. My work email was flooded. "I hope you get fired. You're a disgrace to women. Karma is coming for you, you monster." My phone buzzed with texts from unknown numbers, DMs from strangers filled with hate. My personal and professional lives, which I had worked so hard to build and keep separate, were being burned to the ground by my own sister. And yet I felt nothing. No panic. No fear. The old Caitlin would have been hysterical. She would have been calling, apologizing, wiring the money just to make it stop. But the new Caitlin was chillingly calm. I sat at my kitchen table, took a sip of coffee, and began to methodically clean up the mess. I didn't engage. I didn't defend myself. I just started deleting. I blocked every unknown number that texted me. I set up a filter on my work email that sent anything with the words sister, Aspen, or monster directly to the trash. I deactivated comments on my own social media, then went private. My boss, Jessica, sent me a text at 9 a.m. with a link to the video. All it said was, "Call me when you have a minute." I called her immediately. I didn't make excuses. I simply said, "There's a family situation I am handling. The story online is not accurate. It will not affect my work." He paused, then said, Let me know if you need anything from HR. And that was it. No judgment. Just professionalism. By noon, the digital noise had quieted, at least in my world. I had built a fortress of blocks and filters. They could scream into the void, but I no longer had to listen. They had raised the stakes, trying to ruin my career. But all they did was prove that I had made the right choice. They didn't want a sister. They wanted a sponsor. And I was officially resigning from the position. The call that changed everything came at 4 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. It was an unknown number with an Aspen area code. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I answered on the third ring. "Is this Caitlin Fletcher?" A calm, professional male voice asked. "This is Officer Miller with the Aspen Police Department. I'm calling regarding your brother, Christopher Fletcher." I put the phone on speaker and continued to fold my laundry. "Go on," I said, my voice even. He took a breath. "Ma'am, the story about a hospital emergency isn't entirely accurate. We were called to the casino last night after Mr. Fletcher assaulted a floor manager. During our investigation, we discovered he had used a fraudulent driver's license and a forged line of credit application to obtain $100,000 in casino markers, which he then lost." I stopped folding. $100,000. "He is currently in custody," the officer continued, "facing charges of felony assault and felony fraud. Bail has been set at $50,000 cash only." The power dynamic of my entire life flipped in that single moment. The moral high ground my family had claimed, the guilt they had used as their primary weapon, all of it evaporated. This wasn't a family drama anymore. This was a criminal case. They were facing a system they couldn't manipulate with tears or sob stories. And their one get-out-of-jail-free card had just declined the charge. "And you're calling me why exactly?" I asked, resuming my folding. "You were listed as his emergency contact and he's been asking for you," Officer Miller said. "His parents are here, but they seem unable to produce the required funds." I could almost hear the understatement in his voice. I took a folded towel and placed it on the neat pile. "Then his parents have a problem. I'm not his guardian and I'm certainly not his co-conspirator. Please direct all future communication to Michael and Jennifer Fletcher." I hung up before he could respond. Not 2 minutes later, my father called from a blocked number. I answered. The sound was pure chaos. My mother wailing in the background, my dad's voice tight with panic. "Caitlin, they're going to send him to prison. It was all a misunderstanding. You have to help us." His voice was desperate, stripped of all its usual authority. He wasn't a disappointed father anymore. He was just a scared old man who had run out of options. "He committed a felony, Dad," I said, my voice cold. "That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice." "He's your brother," my mother shrieked, having grabbed the phone. "You can't just abandon him in a jail cell." For years that line would have broken me. But now it was meaningless. "I can," I said. "And I will. You created this monster. You can deal with him." I ended the call and blocked the number. They had no power over me anymore. The FOG had finally lifted. My father made one last desperate plea the next day. He called from a payphone, his voice raspy and broken. "He has a gambling addiction, Caitlin," he confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. "It's been going on for years. We didn't want to tell you." He explained everything. The secret debts, the loan sharks, the $200,000 they'd borrowed against their house to cover Christopher's losses, telling me it was for home renovations. The Aspen trip was supposed to be his one last chance to win it all back. They weren't just enabling him. They were co-conspirators in their own financial ruin. Now the bank was foreclosing on their home. Christopher was facing serious prison time. And they were completely, utterly broke. "We need $200,000, Caitlin," he begged, his voice cracking. "One last time. We'll pay you back every cent. It's for a lawyer, for the house, for rehab. Please, don't let your mother and I become homeless." I stood on my balcony looking out at the Denver skyline, the air crisp and cold against my face. "No," I said quietly. The word was simple, absolute. There was a long, ragged silence on the other end of the line. Then he played his final, most despicable card. "We gave you the down payment for your condo," he whispered. $40,000. "We gave you that. Doesn't that count for anything?" And that's when the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "You didn't give me anything, did you, Dad?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. He started to sob. Ugly choking sounds. We were desperate, he cried. We took out a personal loan. We couldn't get approved, so I signed your name. We've been making the payments. The world went silent. My down payment. The foundation of my own independence. It wasn't a gift. It was a fraud. Another secret debt they had shackled me with. They hadn't just been taking my future income. They had stolen from my past. That was the ultimate betrayal. Goodbye, Dad, I said, and I ended the call. The collapse was swift. Without my money to stop the bleeding, their world fell apart. The bank foreclosed on the house. Madison's influencer career imploded when the story of the GoFundMe fraud went viral. Her brand deals were dropped, her followers vanished. Christopher took a plea deal, felony fraud in exchange for 18 months in a state prison, followed by mandatory rehab. I moved to a new apartment across town, changed my number and scrubbed my life clean of them. The silence they left behind was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. My shoulders, which had been tight with tension for 2 decades, finally relaxed. I bought my own home 6 months later, this time with a down payment that was truly my own. I finally understood that setting a boundary isn't an act of war. It's an act of self-preservation. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource. And resources eventually run dry.